So my name is Richie Laburn. I'm the CEO of the Sabie-Sand project. And my background sits at the intersection of conservation, of business, of finance, and of ecotourism. I live within the project area here in the Lowveld, adjacent to the Kruger National Park. And so this landscape is not abstract to me. It's very, very personal. Save the Sand as a project was originally a government-initiated project that started in the early 90s, and it was focused on water conservation in the Sabie-Sand River catchment. And in 2022-23, I decided to reinvigorate it as a large-scale nature-based carbon project. So we operate across the Sabie-Sand River catchments in Mpumalanga. This is around 630,000 hectares of communal land adjacent to the Kruger National Park. It's home to around 120,000 households across 10 traditional authorities. And our goal is simple. We want to plant 2.5 million indigenous trees to sequester approximately 7 million tons of carbon over a 40-year period. And by doing this, we're aiming to create a durable economic foundation for communities who have been stewarding the land for generations without the adequate financial reward for doing so. So the core thesis is simple. The catchment has been sequestering carbon for centuries, and we're starting to build the receipt for that. The project operates at 3 levels simultaneously. At an ecological level, we're planting native fruit and nut-bearing trees. In particular, something like a marula tree is a flagship tree, but we're also doing wild fig, we're doing indigenous species, we're doing medicinal plants that are very suited to this specific savanna landscape. We plant on croplands, we plant on homesteads, we plant on school grounds, we plant integrated riparian zones. And these trees, they don't just sequester carbon. They stabilize soils, they'll improve water quality in the Sabie-Sand River systems, and they restore the habitat connectivity and the biodiversity corridors between the Kruger National Park and the Bladder River catchment. And I think the thing that people often miss is that the Sabie-Sand River doesn't just stop once it gets to the Kruger National Park fence. And it doesn't just stop at the South African border either. The Sabie-Sand catchments flow through Mozambique and provide water to people in Maputo. So what we plant here has water security implications for 2 countries. And that's why we've structured the project within the SADC Transboundary Water Governance Framework through LIMCOM and NMACOM, the Limpopo and the Nkomati Maputo Watercourse Commissions. And this gives the work a regional mandate that goes well beyond a single carbon project. At an agricultural level, we're integrating agroforestry into smallholder farming systems. So trees on cropland aren't in competition with food production. If we properly design it, they actually enhance it. It improves shade, soil moisture retention, and the fruit yield all translates directly to food security for families. And thirdly, at a community level, we've structured various tiers of benefit sharing, from direct tree custodian revenue share payments to local job creation and employment and enterprise creation from the ecosystem services, to a community infrastructure fund at a traditional authority level that seeks to build not just a project for the region, but rather an institution of land stewards for a 40-year period. I would say the thing that motivated me to focus on nature-based carbon credits is that I believe carbon finance is really the only mechanism large enough to make restoration at this scale economically viable. You cannot fund 40 years of tree planting and community livelihood and grants alone. What makes the Save the Sand project different is threefold. The first is that every tree we plant is traceable. So we built a census-based monitoring system. This is not statistical sampling. We account for every tree planted, its species, its location, its carbon accumulation. The ton is just the unit, but the story is the landscape. The second thing is that our carbon value chain doesn't end at the credit. The same trees generating carbon revenue are producing fruit and other biomass. This creates multiple income streams from a single land intervention. And the third point, and I think this is the most important point, is that carbon without community is just accounting. So we're building an economy. The governance model is genuinely community rooted and centered around individual land stewards looking after trees at a distributed level. So we are registered under Verra's carbon standard using the VM47 methodology. We're also pursuing dual certification with the climate, community and biodiversity standards at a gold level. And this adds a rigorous co-benefit layer on top of the carbon accounting. We use an independent third-party verification body to conduct validation at the moment. And then on the data side, we've built our own digital MRV system on a spatial database platform. So the field data architecture has really been designed from the ground up, almost at a sapling level, to meet Verra audit requirements. It's not something that we've retrofitted after the fact. And I think this matters enormously for a 40-year project. The data infrastructure has to be as durable as the trees are. So I think, over the last couple of years, bad carbon really has built a bad reputation in the markets, and good carbon has to rebuild it. So this is one verified tree at a time, and that is the standard that we are seeking to hold ourselves to. Well, the framing of balance perhaps is the wrong starting point. For me, the assumption that conservation and livelihoods are in tension is perhaps a colonial era construct. In our context, we view them as the same thing. We are not bridging conservation to communities. We're recognizing that conservation work has always been done by them. And so the communities living in this catchment, they're not obstacles to conservation. They are the conservation infrastructure. And without their stewardship of 40,000 hectares of communal land, there really is no project. So in practical terms, things like free, prior, informed consent processes, benefit sharing frameworks that have been co-designed with the community inputs, the fact that households retain the rights to use the trees they plant for fruit, for shade, for medicine, for heritage purposes, while still getting the carbon value flowing back to them through the crediting mechanism. These are all things that land the project alongside community stewardship. And for us, in terms of like an equity reality, a tree custodian on Bushbuck Ridge is doing the same ecological work as a carbon engineer in London. And we believe that it's time they got paid like it. So the rights of communities are not a constraint on the project, they are the foundation of it. Yeah, it's a great question. From my perspective, I don't think that Africa is late to the carbon markets. I think that the carbon markets are late to Africa. This continent holds a disproportionate share of the world's remaining intact ecosystems, biodiversity and carbon sequestration potential, yet has historically captured only a fraction of the capital flows that potential should command. And so what Africa brings that other regions cannot replicate is a combination of land scale, of ecological richness, as well as a social dimension. High integrity carbon isn't just about tons, it's about permanence, it's about co-benefits, and it's about whether communities are genuine partners. These communities are not sitting on degraded land. They're simply sitting on an undercapitalized asset. And African projects, if they're properly structured, they have the potential to set a benchmark for what the global voluntary and compliance carbon market should aspire to. So it's funny though, because the continent that gets blamed most for climate vulnerability essentially holds the most cards in the climate solution. South Africa specifically sits at a very interesting inflection point, given where the domestic carbon pricing is going, where the emergent Article 6 framework is going, as well as the fact that we have a biodiversity estate that is globally significant. And our land, Africa's land, is its balance sheet. And for the first time, we're really starting to learn how to read it properly. There are probably three things that are the most challenging in this evolving system. And the first is without a doubt the methodology risk. So the carbon market's credibility has no doubt taken hits from projects that overclaimed. And we've had the likes of registries responding with methodological reforms. There have been Article 6 negotiations that are reshaping sovereign frameworks, and the rules that govern what constitutes high integrity credit are still being written. And so to build a 40-year project on a regulatory ground that shifts beneath us is without a doubt very challenging. The second is around data infrastructure. So you can imagine that census-based monitoring of 2.5 million trees across 40,000 hectares of distributed communal land it's technically achievable, but it's only achievable if the data systems are treated as a first-order investment and not as an afterthought. most projects would tend to underinvest in MRV, and given where technology is moving to, particularly with the likes of artificial intelligence, we just believe we cannot do that. The land already works here. We're building the financial system to reward it, and that system lives and dies on the quality of the data and your ability to evolve that data. And then the third thing would be, the challenge around community trust at pace. So there is a discrepancy between Western finance timelines and community decision-making timelines, and these are structurally misaligned. So capital wants certainty in months, in quarters, in years, whereas the whole genuine FPIC process with traditional authorities takes more time. It takes a lot of trust building. And so compressing that process to satisfy investor schedules is typically how projects fail in Africa. And so what we've chosen to do is to hold the line on the process, even when it costs us time, so that we can make sure we have a foundational layer of trust that's built to last. Yeah, the most rewarding aspect, without a doubt, is standing at the actual pilot sites that we planted. So this is a couple of hectares of land with a couple of thousand trees that have been planted by our local tree custodians. And it's really understanding that these pilot sites are the proof of concept for something that could span initially 40,000 hectares, potentially 90,000 hectares of land. And there is a gap between that small clearing and the full project vision that appears enormous. But the physics are the same. If the system works at a few hectares, it scales. And 40 years is not a constraint. 40 years is the point. That moment of the first proof, that is an irreplaceable moment that is without a doubt the most rewarding. In terms of the most difficult, I would be lying if I said that the weight of expectations from communities doesn't keep me up at night. There are people living below the poverty line in one of South Africa's most economically marginalized regions. And so when we arrive with a vision of carbon finance and long-term benefit sharing, we start to raise hopes in places where hope has been raised and disappointed before. And that is a responsibility that it's not something you get used to. It sharpens every decision-making process that we take. Thank you for having me. The thing that really gives me genuine confidence, and this is not optimism, this is confidence, is that the fundamentals are sound, right? The land is real, the trees are real, the communities are real partners and land stewards, the carbon methodology is rigorous, and the governance structures are legitimate. So what we're doing at Sabie-Sand, it's not complicated in concept. We're helping 120,000 households turn the ecological stewardship that they've always practiced into an economic asset they've never been paid for. The land already works. We're simply building the financial system to reward it. And if we get this right, and I believe that we will, this becomes a replicable model for how large-scale, community-rooted, nature-based carbon projects can and should be structured across the continent adjacent to wildlife areas. And I'll say it again, is that Africa's land is its balance sheet. And for the first time, we're really starting to learn how to read it properly. Thank you.